was 1 year ago today that the first cases of COVID-19 were reported in Montgomery County and in the state of Maryland. That day, the governor declared a state of emergency, and the state of emergency continues today. COVID has shaken up everything in our lives, everything. We have lost too many of our residents to this virus. It has taken its greatest toll on our elderly population and our communities of color. And the pain of these losses has had a far wider impact in our communities, and in particular, on the families and the friends of those who have died. In the last 12 months, almost 1,400 county residents have lost their lives. And during this time, more than 60,000 county residents have contracted COVID-19, and those numbers continue to rise. And for many who do get sick, the effects continue to linger, even after they've recovered from the virus itself. The human toll of this disease has been front and center in our minds as we've worked to steer the county in a way that minimizes the toll the virus takes in the community. The steps we have taken to protect public health have been hard on all of us. It has been difficult for our businesses, for our nonprofits, our educators, our children, and their parents. These restrictions have been painful, but were necessary to save lives. Every decision that opened things up to allow more interactions between people also provided more routes for the virus to spread. And minimizing that spread and its deadly consequences has been our goal. Overall, our case counts are relatively low compared to other areas around the region and country. Some people say to me that we should open things back up because our numbers have come a long way down from the peak of the last wave. And I try to remind them that those numbers are low because we implemented the necessary restrictions, and they're low because of our residents who have been willing to follow the guidelines even as their lives have been severely disrupted. We are fortunate in Montgomery County that our residents understand that the measures we take are central to saving lives. Throughout this pandemic, you, our residents, have been reasonable, understanding, and engaged. Even when you have not agreed with some of the tough decisions that have been made, you have done your best to follow the guidelines and keep our communities safe. At the same time, we've tried to help our many businesses, both for-profit and nonprofit, who are struggling to keep their doors open. Because they are essential for our economy and our quality of life, we continue to partner with the County Council to provide financial support. To date, we've provided multiple relief programs to assist our restaurants, retail shops, service providers, and arts organizations to help them through these difficult times. Over the past year, we have provided more than $70 million in relief. We've also created business curbside pickup zones, streeteries, and modified our alcohol sales policy. The county is providing more than $50 million in rental relief assistance for families that are not working or have lost income due to COVID. We've supported child care providers, expanded Wi-Fi into more public spaces, and created more outdoor safe spaces for residents. We continue to do as much as possible to stabilize working families who are already in need. But the need is much greater than the county can provide alone. We continue to work with our state and federal representatives and are very much appreciative of their work and what has been provided to us to date. Their help is imperative to ensuring that we are able to recover from the pandemic and rebuild our economy. Our businesses and hard-hit residents need an economic stimulus in order to avoid more business closures and evictions. COVID has demanded that all of us change the way we do things. We have learned to work remotely, reinvent our businesses, deliver services differently, celebrate graduations, birthdays, and other special occasions in ways we had not considered before. And we've learned to work together against a common enemy and toward a common goal. I also want to highlight the generosity of spirit demonstrated by so many county residents. Many of you have used your creativity and compassion to help us through these difficult times. Some have made masks at home and at your companies. Others have donated personal protective equipment for our first responders. Our faith-based community, social service organizations, and community groups have been helping families in need by hosting food banks and grab-and-go pickup spots all over the county. We have provided over 14,000 tons of food through the Montgomery County Food Council to help families disproportionately affected by COVID-19. I especially want to thank our many nonprofit partners who have extended our reach and provided the services that went beyond what government by itself could do. We have come a long way since we learned of our first COVID case on March 5th, 2020. It seems like such a long time ago. I remember in early May when we were wondering if we'd be ready to celebrate the 4th of July. It's astonishing to think back on how little we knew at this time. How did the virus travel? Who was at risk? Should we wear masks? How do we test for it? Somehow we adapted to a world with the virus in it, and we now know there are vaccines as a shining light at the end of this very long tunnel. I'm painfully aware of the vaccine distribution and how it's caused such anxiety. The state hurried to quickly tell people they could get vaccinated when there was far too little supply to meet the people's expectations. As vaccines rolled out, the county was getting a total of 15,000 doses a week, only 4,500 for our own health department, for over 300,000 people who were told they could get vaccinated. The state numbers are similar. 2 million residents waiting for the state to distribute its weekly allotment of less than 100,000 doses. It has been overwhelming, and the appointment systems have failed and have led to mass confusion and frustration. The vaccines are our ticket to returning to our lives with more contact and interaction, and more vaccines are on the way. But there are not yet enough vaccines being produced to meet all of the demand. Vaccines are available at the county health department, at hospitals, pharmacies, and mass vaccination sites, but there is still a limited supply. For now, patience is required. We will have enough vaccines, but it will take some time. We are following federal guidelines on how to prioritize the doses, and I'm happy to report that this week, everyone 75 and older who pre-registered with the county has received an invitation to schedule an appointment. We have also set up phone numbers to help people with limited access to the internet, and we have prioritized outreach to the communities of color that have been so hard hit by this virus. Despite COVID-19 upending our lives in ways we could never have imagined, I was determined that we would remain focused on the broader work that we knew we needed to get done. Every challenge that we faced before COVID was going to be with us after COVID. They did not go away. They did not diminish in importance, and they would and will be there when COVID is done. There is no doubt that COVID impacted what we could do, but we continue to plan for a post-COVID world where we could redirect our energies to the long-term progress we seek to make. When I gave this address last year, I talked about the things that my administration would be addressing to make the county a better place to live. I talked about our capital budget, our economic development efforts, and our work to address affordable housing and climate change. I also talked about work we have done to increase access to early care, launching a bus rapid transit system, and how we were creating a more innovative government to serve you better. We started 2020 with plans to move our county forward and to make it a more equitable place for the people who live and work here. So I want to take a moment to tell you a little about what we've been able to do and what we're working on in addition to all our efforts to address this pandemic. Before I do, I want to be sure to recognize and thank the members of the County Council for all of their important work. I also want to thank our dedicated county employees who have learned how to work differently, and I especially want to thank our employees out on the front lines from the beginning who have been putting themselves at risk throughout this pandemic. We know that in our post-COVID world, transportation will be central to making our county a great place to live and work. And transit is a key to that success. In the midst of the pandemic, we launched the Flash BRT on Route 29, which is an important step forward for the East County. Now we are moving forward with plans for BRT along Veers Mill Road and Route 355. In the years ahead, we'll continue to focus on improving accessibility and reliability of our transit services, using equity as a key to decision-making factor, because access to quick and reliable transit is a key to ensuring that all communities thrive. And as part of our work to fight climate change, we are moving the county toward an electric vehicle future, from cars to buses, and as we transition our fleets to clean energy. We're also making use of electric vehicles more convenient through increased access to charging stations. We continue to advance our Vision Zero program aimed at increasing pedestrian safety, reducing obstacles for people with disabilities, and slowing traffic in particular where pedestrian activity is greatest. Our library system responded to the pandemic with great agility. A year ago, the Montgomery County Public Libraries had never conducted a virtual program. 1 week after the libraries were required to shut their doors last March, they had their first online story time, and they've not looked back. The programs include morning and evening story times, book discussions, language practice, job and workforce counseling, wellness classes, and much more. And last month, we announced the elimination of late fees for overdue items, joining hundreds of library systems nationwide in eliminating fees that serve as barriers to library use and disproportionately affect individuals and families who are facing economic challenges. Our community engagement group succeeded at the challenge of conducting a census count amidst the pandemic. We recognized that there was significant overlap between communities most directly impacted by COVID and target census communities, so we linked COVID resources and information to census outreach. As election time approached, we also tied in voting information. The census translates into money from federal and state sources that is tied to our population. We needed to get it right. All of the hard work paid off. Montgomery County finished with a self-response rate of 78%, which is 2% above our rate in 2010 when there was no pandemic. And since we are the most populous jurisdiction in Maryland, we were key to the state finishing at number 9 in the nation. We knew we could not shut down government during the pandemic. Thanks to the Department of Technology Services, most of the county's 10,000 employees are working remotely. DTS has also helped us respond to the sharply increased demand from residents for information services, not only on COVID-19 itself, but also on income, food, and rental support. And we are working to address the 2 primary digital equity issues in the county: the accessibility of a robust internet service in the agricultural reserve and reliable, affordable service to low-income and special needs residents in our urban and suburban areas. Main Street Connect is a recent example of this important partnership, providing free internet access to the 70 units that are housing low-income families and adults with disabilities. We continue to work to make Montgomery County a great place for our residents and a place where businesses want to come and stay. Because we thrive when our businesses thrive, we have welcomed new companies into Montgomery County and supported the expansion of others. Over the last year, our Department of Permitting Services has worked with our technology services staff to make significant changes to our permitting requirements by implementing an innovative, clear, efficient, cloud-based permitting and licensing system for residents, businesses, and our community partners. We're also using our county's purchasing power to help our businesses succeed by implementing a procurement preference for local companies and by improving transparency so that companies better understand the deliverables and our timelines. If it weren't for COVID, climate change would have been the headline natural disaster of the year, and the decade, and the century. This was and is an existential threat to our lives. It was before the pandemic, and that has not changed. So our work has continued. We evaluated the recommendations of the amazing Climate Change Working Group, and in December 2020, we released our draft Climate Action Plan. This plan provides a roadmap for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and the climate-related risks for our residents, businesses, and the built and natural environments. We are already feeling the impacts of climate change in our county: hotter summers, increased flooding, and more extreme storms, also often disproportionately affecting the most vulnerable communities. In just one example, it's become painfully clear that our stormwater systems cannot handle the storms that we are seeing now. The The Climate Change Action Plan identifies 87 action items that will help us meet our goals of reducing emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035. The recommendations reflect a future reimagined, one in which our buildings, transportation systems, government processes, consumption patterns, and community engagement efforts are all realigned to meet our generation's greatest challenge. We are already taking concrete steps to get us moving towards our goal. Not all the answers are there, but key technologies are driving changes in energy use and consumption that will likely create more viable solutions at better costs in the not-too-distant future. The Climate Action Plan is a living document meant to evolve as new tools become available. It is a plan based on the best of what we know today, with an eye on what we will discover tomorrow. As we prepare to address climate change and a post-pandemic world, our Department of General Services is leading efforts to reshape the county's real estate portfolio through both a reduced need for office space because of teleworking and by implementing net zero design standards for the county's new buildings and renovations for existing buildings. These initiatives will save both money and conserve county resources. An example is the recently completed Wheaton Library and Rec Center, certified as LEED Gold for its energy efficiency and use of recycled and locally sourced materials. We are also installing photovoltaic panels at county sites and pursuing innovative environmental design concepts such as the use of solar glass. Microgrids have also been constructed at the Public Safety Headquarters and the Clarksburg Correctional Facility. Later this year, construction will begin on another microgrid at the Brookfield Bus Maintenance Facility, which will also serve as a charging station for the county's growing fleet of electric buses. During 2021, we will begin installing solar panels on a closed landfill, providing less costly clean energy for lower-income households. We are also exploring the feasibility of commingling agriculture with solar arrays, addressing the pressing need to move forward renewable energy sources while we also recognize food security issues. And I proposed, and the council passed, legislation banning plastic straws and non-recyclable plastic containers. We are also continuing our work to provide affordable housing. We are committed to using publicly owned land to produce housing affordable to low-income households. We've signed an agreement on the first project, which develops and will develop and provide deeply affordable rents and give some opportunities for home ownership, which is an important path to building wealth and stability. And through a variety of strategies, the county has produced and/or helped preserve more than 6,000 affordable housing units. We know that tens of thousands of affordable rental units have been lost, and more than 10,000 more are expected to be lost over the next decade. That is why we are developing a no net loss strategy to preserve or replace affordable rental units that would be lost in the redevelopment process. We have also begun and continue our work to reimagine public safety so that all communities feel protected and safe. For years, every social problem has been dropped on the police to handle, when more appropriate responses should be provided by our human service agencies, and that is the path we will build going forward. We have had tremendous community work and input on this initiative that will help deliver services in a more equitable manner. And all of our efforts, from providing testing and vaccines to transportation, to climate change mitigation, to affordable housing, to childcare, to public safety and more, are viewed through a racial equity lens and a social justice lens. We are considered a progressive community, but even here, racial disparities in education, health, employment, home ownership, equal opportunity remain all too present. This is a deep social issue, one that is rooted in society's inability to deal with the legacy of slavery in this country and its continuing impacts on our society, not just our county. Our new Office of Racial Equity is tasked with working with our county government and our residents too. As Dr. King said, bend the arc of history toward justice. As I hope you can see, despite the enormous challenges of this past year, we have managed to achieve some important milestones and successes. The state of our county is strong because of you. We have been able to adjust to the challenges that COVID has created and move forward on important policies and programs for Montgomery County. And I remain hopeful that better days are ahead, but we must be patient and vigilant and continue with the guidelines. We will get to a point when we can spend some time with our friends, families, and coworkers and not worry about contracting the virus. And everyone will get vaccinated. In fact, with the recent increase in production and approval of a third vaccine, that will come faster than we thought. The challenges have been enormous, but please be assured that we are continuing to work every day to make sure we are doing what needs to be done. As I've run errands and attended a few outdoor meetings or events, some of you who have recognized me even with my mask on, I've appreciated the conversations. I miss interacting with people of this great county, but I'm optimistic that if we stick together and continue to mask up, keep our distance, and get tested as we wait for more vaccines, we can win this battle. These steps will keep us safe as we continue to move our county forward. I want to thank you for joining me today as I shared with you my thoughts on the state of our county. A year ago, I doubt that any of us could have imagined the unprecedented challenges we would face from COVID-19, challenges that required us to reimagine almost everything we do. Thanks to your extraordinary response, our county has proven resilient, responding to the present, and ready for what the future will bring. Thank you all, and my best to you and your families.